It started with a broken bottle of wine and a lie I was supposed to swallow like cough syrup. I came back from a weekend fishing trip with my brother, an old plan we had postponed too many times. As soon as I stepped into the house, it smelled wrong. Not dirty or rotten. Just off. The air was thicker, like someone had spent too long pretending everything was normal. On the kitchen counter, a half-drunk bottle of Malbec lay shattered. A dark stain bled across the marble, and next to it there was a wine glass, one. But 2 chairs were pulled out at the table. I heard her before I saw her. Savannah. My wife. She was upstairs, pacing, her voice too low to catch at first, but the laughter that followed was crystal clear. Not the sweet kind she used to give me. This one was rawer, more private, carved out for someone else. I didn't call her name. I didn't make noise. I moved like a ghost up the stairs, every step matching the thud of my heart. At the top, her phone buzzed on the hallway table, screen lighting up with a message. Next time, just stay the night. He's clueless. No name. Just that. Cold and efficient. I stood there staring at it, feeling the first crack splinter down my spine. But still, I wasn't ready to believe. I needed something final. Something that didn't let me pretend anymore. The bedroom door was open 2 inches. Enough. Through the gap, I saw her in front of the mirror, fixing her hair, wearing one of those tight dresses she used to save for our anniversaries. She smirked at herself. Not a nervous check. Not a wife worried if her husband would walk in any minute. No. She was glowing. I stepped back before she noticed me and walked outside without a sound. Down the driveway, past my truck, to the street lamp that flickered at the edge of our yard. I needed air. I needed to think. But before I could even draw a full breath, a sleek black BMW rolled into the driveway, too smooth, too casual, like it belonged there. The man who stepped out wore a denim jacket and khaki sneakers, the kind you only buy if you're still chasing something at 30. He didn't knock. He didn't hesitate. He just walked inside. I could have confronted them right there. Banged the door open. Made a scene. But something in me, something cold and sharp, wanted to watch. Wanted to see just how deep this betrayal ran. So I followed him in, silent as a shadow. They didn't even make it past the hallway. He grabbed her waist. She laughed, the same laugh I'd heard upstairs, and kissed him like the world had ended and started all over again just for them. I stood 10 feet away. She didn't notice me. Neither did he. She humiliated me, flaunted her affair, and even brought her lover into our home. I stayed silent until I reached for my Magnum, and suddenly he wasn't so confident anymore. No, I didn't pull the trigger. I didn't even raise it. Just held it at my side, heavy and silent like the weight of every damn thing crashing down at once. The guy saw me first. He froze mid-grin, hands slipping from her hips like he'd touched fire. Savannah turned next, and for the first time, her face wasn't full of lies or excuses. It was naked fear. She tried to speak. Words caught in her throat like shards of glass. I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I didn't say anything a broken man is supposed to say when he finds his life crumpled at his feet. I just looked at her and said, "Finish what you started." And then I walked out the front door, leaving them both frozen behind me, 2 statues carved from shame. I didn't drive anywhere. I just sat on the curb across the street, arms resting on my knees, staring at my house like it was some crime scene from a movie. The front door stayed open behind them, a bright mouth swallowing the darkness. I waited for something. Anything. Maybe Savannah would come running out, sobbing, begging. Maybe the guy would charge after me, acting tough now that the gun was out of sight. Nothing. Cowards, both of them. Instead, the guy bolted first, shoes slapping against the driveway, hopped into his BMW like a rat seeing the floodwaters rise. He peeled out so fast his tires screamed against the concrete, leaving a sharp, burning stench in the air. Good. One less thing breathing near me. Savannah appeared at the doorframe a minute later. Barefoot. Still in the tight black dress, now rumpled like it had betrayed her too. She hesitated like the porch was a cliff edge and stepping off meant freefall. Eventually, she crossed the yard slowly, each step heavy and reluctant. When she got close, I could see her eyes, the same green eyes that used to shine when she looked at me, now hollowed out and trembling. "Caleb," she whispered, her voice breaking like an old record. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. The Magnum was hidden in the back seat of my truck now. I wasn't the threat she should worry about. She was her own worst weapon. She knelt down next to me, hands clasped like she was praying. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said, as if my heart exploding inside my chest was some minor inconvenience. I laughed. A low, humorless sound that scared even me. "You thought I wouldn't notice you treating our marriage like a hobby you got bored of?" Savannah's lips quivered, but no apology came. Only silence. I tilted my head, studying her like a stranger. "What's his name?" It came out colder than I intended. Almost clinical. She opened her mouth, shut it, then opened it again. "Derek." Of course it was Derek. A stupid, slick, smug name for a stupid, slick, smug man. How long? I pressed, though part of me already knew. The way she recoiled told me. 3 months, she croaked. 3 months. 3 months of her slipping away from me, laughing behind my back, sharing parts of herself she once swore were mine alone. Why? I asked. Why him? Savannah wiped her nose with the back of her hand, looking smaller, weaker. He made me feel alive, she said, voice so tiny I almost didn't catch it. And you didn't? I asked, voice rising now, anger scratching at my throat. You didn't feel alive when I stayed up 3 nights straight building you that garden you said you dreamed about? You didn't feel alive when I took out a second mortgage so you could open that goddamn art studio? Her face crumpled, but there were no tears. Only guilt soaking into her skin like acid. I was bored, she finally said, words slicing through the night. There it was. Not loneliness. Not desperation. Just boredom. Like I was a worn-out book she tossed aside for something flashier. The full weight of it crushed me all at once. I stood up. She stayed kneeling like a sinner waiting for absolution that wasn't coming. I gave you everything, I said, voice low but shaking with the force of everything I was holding back. And you sold it for some second-hand rush with a guy who thinks cologne is a personality. Savannah reached for me, a small, pitiful motion, but I stepped back. The distance between us yawned into a canyon. I can fix it, she said desperately. Caleb, please? We can fix it. I made a mistake, but it's not too late. We can go to therapy or something. I stared at her. Really stared. At the woman who had once promised me the world and delivered nothing but rubble. No, I said. You broke something you can't glue back together with therapy sessions and fake promises. Her face twisted, rage blooming behind the panic now. The real Savannah, the one she kept hidden beneath sweet smiles and careful lies, finally surfaced. You think you're perfect, she spat. You think you were some dream husband? Maybe if you hadn't been so boring, so predictable, I wouldn't have needed Derek. There it was again. Boredom. My mortal sin. I nodded slowly, feeling a strange, serene calm wash over me. You're right, I said. I'm boring. Boring enough to stay loyal. Boring enough to believe in forever. Her mouth opened, but I didn't give her the chance to spew any more venom. I turned and walked to my truck. Slid behind the wheel. Started the engine. Through the windshield, I saw her standing in the middle of the street, barefoot and furious and desperate. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel sadness. Only one clear, simple thought. Let her rot in the grave she dug with her own hands. Then I drove away without looking back. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even try. The truck became my coffin on wheels, rolling through streets I barely recognized anymore. I ended up in a Walmart parking lot at 3 a.m., surrounded by flickering lights and the quiet hum of vending machines. I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror, a man I barely recognized. There was a kind of violence inside me. Not the kind that breaks things or swings fists. No, it was the quiet kind. The kind that rearranges your whole damn soul. I thought about every stupid anniversary I planned. Every late-night grocery run I made when she craved chocolate at midnight. Every argument I let go just to keep the peace. All of it. Wasted. And in that parking lot, somewhere between rage and ruin, a thought broke through the chaos like a bullet through glass. I wasn't going to beg her to love me again. I wasn't going to fix what she smashed for a thrill. I was going to burn the last pieces of us so cleanly that not even ashes would remain. By sunrise, I had a plan. Clear, cold, perfect. First, I drove back home, slow, unhurried, like a man clocking in for a final shift. Her car was still there. Good. Let her watch. I didn't knock. I didn't creep. I marched through the front door like it was mine, because it was, and found her sitting on the couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, face pale, eyes rimmed red from crying. Not good enough? Savannah stood up when she saw me, hope flickering across her face like a dying candle. Caleb, she whispered. I held up a hand. Sharp. Final. Her mouth clamped shut. I crossed to the hallway closet, pulled out 2 massive black duffel bags and dropped them onto the floor with a thud that made her flinch. You've got 20 minutes, I said calmly. Pack what you need. Leave what you don't. I'll be changing the locks by noon. Savannah stared at me like I'd slapped her. But this is my home too, she said, voice trembling. Was I corrected? You chose to share it with Derek. Now share his. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Like she was trying to bargain with a hurricane. I'm serious, Savannah, I continued. I don't care where you go. His place. A hotel. Hell, sleep in your car. You're not staying here. Her chin jutted out, stubbornness flashing back. You're kicking me out, she said, voice rising. No, I said, stepping closer until there were only inches between us. You threw yourself out the second you decided some sleazy one-night adrenaline hit was worth more than your marriage. She slapped me. Hard. The crack echoed around the living room like a gunshot. My face stung, but I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just smiled, slow, grim, real. That's the first honest thing you've done in months, I said. She broke then. Really broke. dropped to the floor, sobbing into her hands like the earth had given out beneath her. Begging, pleading, saying all the right words too late. I didn't feel victorious. I felt nothing. I left her there and walked into the kitchen, grabbed a trash bag and started clearing out drawers, scooping her junk into it without a second glance. Every love letter, every framed picture of us grinning stupidly at beaches and weddings and birthdays into the trash. Behind me, Savannah screamed something, insults, maybe, or apologies, but I didn't listen. I was busy erasing her. When I finished, I hauled the bag outside and dumped it on the front lawn. Neighbors peeked through blinds, pretending they weren't watching. Good. Let them see. Let them remember. She followed me out, mascara streaking down her cheeks, arms wrapped around herself like armor. Where am I supposed to go? She sobbed. I leaned in close enough for her to smell the truth rolling off me like smoke. Ask Derek, I said. And with that I turned, got in my truck, and drove off again. But this time there was no hesitation. No grief. Just fire in my veins, pure and clean. I wasn't running away anymore. I was building the funeral pyre. I didn't stop driving until the sun was high enough to bleach the sky, glaring at me through the windshield like a silent judge. There was a part of me that thought I'd feel lighter after throwing her out, like maybe the weight would peel off my ribs and I'd breathe normal again. But grief is a stubborn parasite. It digs in, makes a home. I ended up at the edge of town, outside a diner I hadn't been to in years, Miller's, the kind of place with peeling paint and a neon sign that buzzed even when it was turned off. I ordered coffee and sat at a window booth, letting the bitter taste tear through the numbness crawling up my throat. Across from me, a couple laughed over pancakes. He fed her a forkful and she leaned into him like gravity had shifted. I stared so long my coffee went cold. Savannah and I used to be that way once. Before everything got cheap and hollow. The waitress, a thin woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Valerie, noticed me brooding and offered a refill without asking. I nodded. Small mercies. My phone buzzed for the 50th time that morning. I ignored it. Savannah had been blowing it up with calls and texts. First apologies. Then begging. Then anger. Now silence. I knew her well enough to know she was plotting. She was the kind of woman who didn't lose without a fight. Not because she loved you. Because she hated losing. And sure enough, by the time I paid my bill and got back in my truck, a new message waited. From a number I didn't recognize. We need to talk. About Savannah. Before you do something stupid. D. I stared at the screen so long the letters blurred. Derek. Of course. The little homewrecker had grown a conscience. Or maybe Savannah was dangling him like a puppet, hoping he'd do her dirty work. Either way, it didn't matter. He wanted a meeting? Good. Let him come. I texted back. Where? He responded almost instantly. Park off Highway 9. Noon. I checked the clock. 11:32. I smiled for the first time in days. I had just enough time to make a stop first. Not to get a weapon. Not to do anything insane. No, what I needed now was colder. Smarter. I drove to the storage unit I hadn't opened in years, a small gray shed at the edge of town, packed with things Savannah made me put away because they didn't fit our aesthetic. Among the boxes of old photo albums and high school trophies, there was something else, a locked metal trunk. Inside, every file, document, and receipt Savannah never thought I kept. Proof of all the money I had poured into her studio. The second mortgage in my name. And, tucked in an envelope, something she probably forgot. The prenup she signed the week before our wedding. Back then she laughed about it, saying she'd never need it. I made her sign it anyway. My father's advice. I took the prenup and the financial documents, locked the unit behind me, and drove to the park. I didn't even have to wait. Derek was already there, standing next to a beat-up silver Corolla, sunglasses on, bouncing on the balls of his feet like a man waiting for a fight he wasn't sure he could win. When he spotted me, he straightened up, trying to puff out his chest. It was almost funny. I parked and got out, moving slow, letting the silence build between us. Derek ripped his shades off, revealing bloodshot eyes and a mouth twisted into something between guilt and defiance. Look, man, he started, voice cracking, I didn't know she was married at first, okay? She didn't tell me. By the time I found out, I raised a hand, same as I had with Savannah. He shut up instantly. I'm not here to hear your confession, I said, voice low and steady. I'm not your priest. Derek swallowed, clearly unsure what he was supposed to do next. Then why'd you come? He muttered. I stepped closer, enough to smell the nervous sweat on him. Because you're going to help me, I said. He blinked. Help you what? I reached into my jacket and pulled out a thick manila folder, the prenup, the receipts, everything. You're going to testify that she lied to you, I said. That she told you she was single. That you had no idea she was married. You're going to sign a statement, nice and legal, and when this goes to court, you're going to be my nuclear bomb. Derek's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Why would I do that? He asked, voice small. I smiled. The the same grim smile Savannah had earned. Because if you don't, I said, I'll drag you into the courtroom right alongside her. You'll lose your job, your reputation. Every dirty text, every photo, every little secret you two shared, it'll all be public record. And I promise you, Derek, your name will rot faster than hers. He paled so fast I thought he might pass out. And if you think she'll protect you? I added, stepping even closer, you don't know Savannah half as well as you think you do. He cracked. It didn't take much. An hour later, I had his signed affidavit in my glove compartment and Derek peeling out of the lot like a dog with its tail between its legs. The trap was set. The hammer was ready. Now it was just a matter of pulling the trigger, in a courtroom, not in my living room. Savannah thought she could humiliate me. She thought she could discard me and move on without consequences. She forgot one important thing. I don't lose. I didn't go home. Home was dead. Home was a corpse wearing the face of the life I used to have. Instead, I drove to the courthouse. Small town like ours, you don't need a big fancy lawyer to nuke someone. You just need the right paperwork and the right timing. I filed for divorce that same afternoon. Cited adultery with corroborating witness testimony. Attached the signed statement from Derek. Attached financial records showing the misuse of joint funds for her business trips which, surprise, were actually weekend getaways with him. The clerk barely blinked. Stamped the papers. Set a preliminary hearing date. It was that easy. All the years of love and promises and plans reduced to a manila folder and a court date. Efficient. Brutal. I should have felt something. I didn't. Afterward, I stopped by a locksmith on Main Street and scheduled a full rekey of the house. New locks by nightfall. New security codes. Savannah wasn't going to slither back in like nothing happened. As I sat in the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. It wasn't Savannah this time. It was her mother, Lorraine, a woman who had treated me like a second son for a decade. The voicemail was short and shaky. Caleb, honey, I don't know what's happening, but Savannah's here and she's a mess. Please call me. I didn't call. Let her explain herself to her own family. Let her choke on it. By sunset, I was back at the house supervising the locksmith. A whole new system, keypad locks, security cameras, motion sensors. Overkill? Maybe. But I wasn't just locking her out physically. I was locking her out of my life. The locksmith handed me the new keys. Rough day? He asked casually. I just smiled. Finally a good one, I said. After he left, I stood in the middle of the living room, breathing in the quiet. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. Sharp as a blade. I boxed up everything that reminded me of her, every photo, every trinket, every tiny thing she had touched, and stacked it all by the curb like garbage waiting for pickup. Because that's what it was now. Garbage. By the time the moon rose, the house looked different. Colder. Sharper. Mine. I sat on the front steps, drinking a beer, watching the streetlights buzz and flicker, feeling the closest thing to peace I had in months. That's when the headlights appeared. A familiar car pulling into the driveway. Fast. Desperate. Savannah. She stumbled out wearing the same black dress from the night before, now wrinkled and stained with what looked like cheap whiskey. She didn't knock. She pounded on the door with both fists, screaming my name. I didn't move. The cameras recorded every second, her yelling, her sobbing, her trying to yank the locked handle. Eventually, she saw me sitting on the steps. Her face twisted into something ugly, raw rage mixed with panic. You can't do this, she screamed. I tilted my head, amused. I already did. She stormed closer, wild-eyed. You can't just erase me, Caleb. You can't just pretend I don't exist. I stood up slowly, letting the full height of me loom over her. You did that yourself, I said. When you brought him into our bed. Her lip trembled. Please, she whispered, voice breaking. Please don't do this. I leaned in close, my voice so low it barely carried across the space between us. You are nothing to me now, I said. Not even a memory. For a second, she just stood there, blinking like she didn't understand the words. Then she broke. Savannah dropped to her knees right there on the front lawn, sobbing, clawing at my jeans like a woman possessed. Begging. Crying. Swearing she'd change. Neighbors were watching again. Good. Let her be humiliated. Let her feel even a fraction of what she made me feel. I shook her off like a stray dog and walked back into the house, locking the door behind me. The last thing I saw before the door shut was her crumpled on the grass, wailing into the night like a creature gutted from the inside out. I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt alive. She didn't leave. I woke up the next morning and there she was, slumped against the porch railing like a broken marionette. Her makeup was smeared into war paint. Her hair a tangled mess. She must have stayed there all night, too proud or too stupid to crawl away. For a moment, I wondered if I should call someone. Maybe her mother. Maybe the police. But then I remembered the months she spent lying to my face, bringing strangers into my bed, laughing behind my back like I was a joke. And the pity evaporated. I opened the door just wide enough to be heard. You've got 5 minutes before I call the cops, I said, my voice flat and final. Savannah lifted her head, blinking like a mole dragged into the daylight. Her mouth moved, but the words tangled themselves into sobs. I didn't wait. I shut the door. Watched through the peephole as she dragged herself to her car, groping for the handle like a drunk. She fumbled with the keys, dropped them, cursed loud enough for half the street to hear, then finally got the engine roaring and peeled away. Good. One less stain on my driveway. By noon, the divorce papers were delivered to her mother's house by courier. No chance of pretending she hadn't been served. No hiding. No stalling. Attached was a letter from my lawyer. No alimony. No division of assets beyond what she personally owned. No mercy. The prenup was ironclad. Savannah had walked into marriage thinking it was romantic fluff. Now it was her cage. By evening, her retaliation began. First came the phone calls, not from her, but from old friends. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly wanted to talk, curious about what had happened, asking loaded questions like, man, did you really kick her out on the street? Or bro, she says you're having a midlife crisis. Savannah was poisoning the well, fast and dirty. Painting herself as the victim. Painting me as the cold, heartless monster. And for a minute it stung. For a minute I wondered if maybe I was being too ruthless. Then I remembered standing in my own hallway while another man kissed my wife. And the pity died again. I made calls of my own. Quiet ones. Sharp ones. Within a week, Savannah's art studio, the one she poured my money into, lost 2 major clients. A whisper here, a conversation there. Nothing provable. Nothing she could pin on me. Only a slow, ugly rot eating at the edges of her carefully curated life. By Friday, I heard through the grapevine that she was living in a motel on the outskirts of town. Cheap. Dusty. The kind of place where dreams go to die. And still, she didn't stop. Saturday night, I came home from getting groceries and found the side of my truck keyed so deep it looked like a claw mark. 3 words carved into the paint. You ruined me. I stared at it for a long time, the grocery bags sagging in my hands. Ruined her? I built her. Brick by brick, dollar by dollar, promise by promise. All she had to do was stay loyal. Instead, she chose to break everything, and now she blamed me for her own demolition. I didn't bother filing a report. Let her get it out. Let her scream into the void. She was fighting a battle that was already lost. But even knowing she was drowning didn't stop the next part. Because Savannah wasn't just self-destructing. She was about to try dragging me down with her. The warning came on Sunday. Not from Savannah. Not from her little network of friends who had been so quick to turn their backs and whisper behind hands. It came from my boss. I was hauling a stack of paperwork across the office when he called me into his office, voice unusually tight. I walked in and immediately knew something was wrong. He didn't offer a chair. Didn't offer a coffee or a smile. Just slid a file across the desk like it was something toxic. Inside, a formal complaint. Filed anonymously. Accusing me of workplace aggression, emotional instability, and threatening behavior. My boss didn't say Savannah's name. He didn't have to. The timeline matched exactly with the last time she showed up screaming on my front lawn. She's trying to torch your job, he said bluntly. I nodded once, cold anger slipping down my spine. Don't worry, he continued, lowering his voice. Everyone knows it's garbage. HR is handling it. But keep your nose clean for the next few months. You're too valuable to lose over personal drama. I thanked him and left the office without another word. Outside, I sat in my truck, staring at the carved accusation on the side panel. You ruined me. No. You ruined yourself, Savannah. And now you're trying to salt the earth on your way down. I drove home with my mind buzzing, not with fear, but with a plan. I wasn't going to just survive her assault. I was going to end this so completely, so absolutely, that she wouldn't have a single piece of me left to swing at. The next morning, I filed a restraining order. Simple. Clean. Attached with it, security footage from my cameras, her screaming at my front door, pounding on windows, refusing to leave after multiple warnings. Photographs of the damage to my truck. Voicemails. Text messages. All of it neatly bundled and tied with a legal bow. The judge didn't even blink. Signed it on the spot. Savannah would be served the next day. The hammer was dropping. That evening, as I sat in my freshly cleaned-out living room, no traces of her left, no phantom sense, no flickers of memories, I felt something unfamiliar coil inside my chest. Not revenge. Freedom. I had spent so long chasing her approval, her affection, her attention, stupid enough to think love was something you earned if you worked hard enough. But some people are black holes. No matter what you pour into them, it's never enough. And now she was about to learn what happens when the thing you feed on cuts off the supply. Later that night, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered. Caleb. Her voice. Raw. Broken. I said nothing. She started, choking on the words, I just need you to listen. I didn't hang up. I wanted to hear it, whatever last lie, whatever last excuse she was dying to spill. I made a mistake, she said. I panicked. I didn't know what I was doing. You were just always so good to me, and I got scared, and Derek, he was nothing, he meant nothing. Her voice cracked again. Tears. Real, maybe? Or maybe just another performance she thought might work. I'll do anything, she whispered. Please. Please don't do this. Don't make me start over. There it was. The truth buried inside the begging. She didn't want me. She wanted what I gave her. The comfort. The money. The safety net. Starting over scared her more than losing me ever could. I let the silence stretch so long I could almost hear her heart breaking on the other end. Then I spoke, slow and deliberate. You already started over, Savannah. The moment you chose him. Click. I hung up. I blocked her number. For good. Tomorrow, she'd wake up served with a restraining order. Homeless. Job bleeding out. Reputation in tatters. And every second of it would be her own design. Not my revenge. Her consequence. I slept better that night than I had in years. I thought it was over. I thought Savannah had finally accepted her loss, packed up her wreckage, and vanished into the gutter she crawled toward. But women like Savannah don't lose quietly. They don't fade out. They burn everything before they accept the end. It happened 3 days after the restraining order hit. I was at work, neck deep in meetings, clearing out months of neglected projects when my phone lit up again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost let it rot in voicemail. But instinct, or maybe habit, made me swipe it open. It wasn't Savannah. It was Lorraine, her mother. Her voice cracked through the line before I could even say hello. Caleb, it's bad. It's really bad. You need to get over here. Cold panic sliced through me uninvited. What's going on? I demanded. She's talking crazy. Saying she's going to ruin everything for you. That if she can't have her old life back, she'll make sure you don't have one either. I closed my eyes, grinding my teeth until my jaw ached. Of course she was. Of course she'd sink lower. Where is she? I asked, already moving toward the door. At my house, Lorraine said, voice trembling. But Caleb, she's not stable. I don't know what she's planning, but it's bad. I hung up without another word and drove, tires screeching, blood roaring in my ears louder than the engine. Not because I was scared of Savannah's threats. No, because I knew exactly what card she was about to play. If she couldn't destroy me through love, reputation, or legality, she would try through lies. I pulled up outside Lorraine's small brick house and spotted Savannah immediately pacing the front yard barefoot, phone clutched in her fist like a grenade ready to blow. She saw me and for a second her whole face lit up manic, wild. She ran toward me, shouting loud enough for the whole damn neighborhood to hear. You can't just throw me away like trash, she screamed. You can't pretend I didn't matter. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Dogs barked down the street. I stayed silent, jaw locked, letting her burn herself out. I'll tell them you hit me, she shrieked suddenly, voice breaking with the feral energy of a cornered animal. I'll tell them you were abusive. I'll tell them you threatened me with that gun. I'll destroy you, Caleb. There it was. The final grenade. False allegations. I felt the old anger surge up like wildfire. But I didn't let it control me. Instead, I moved slow, careful, every step deliberate. Lorraine stood on the porch, hands pressed over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She knew. She knew her daughter was lying. And yet she couldn't stop it. Savannah's hands trembled so violently she dropped her phone in the grass. She scrambled for it like it was the only lifeline left. You do that, I said calmly, voice cutting through her hysteria like a blade. Call the cops. File the report. Perjure yourself. She froze, clutching the phone like a weapon. Because when you do, I continued, stepping close enough for her to feel the full weight of my words, you'll be arrested for filing a false report. She shook her head, backing away. You'll be the one in court, I said, voice lower now, more lethal. Facing jail time. You'll be the one explaining to a judge why you violated a restraining order. Why there's video footage. Witnesses. A signed confession from Derek himself. Her mouth opened, desperate for a lie, any lie that might still save her. But there was no room left for lies. Only consequences. I pulled my phone from my pocket, holding it up where she could see the blinking red light. Recording. Every word. Every threat. Every crazy accusation. You just handed me everything I need, I said. Savannah crumpled. Not fell, crumpled, like a marionette with its strings cut. She dropped to her knees on the grass, wailing, clutching at nothing. Lorraine rushed forward, gathering her up, holding her daughter like a child, whispering nonsense meant to calm her, to shield her from the storm she had summoned. I didn't stay to watch. I walked back to my truck, heart pounding but hands steady. As I pulled away, Savannah's cries faded into the distance, a pathetic, dying echo. She could threaten all she wanted. She could scream until her voice shredded into silence. It wouldn't matter. She was finished. Legally. Socially. Personally. I had every piece I needed to bury her if she tried to take another swing. And she knew it now. Finally, the news came 2 days later. Lorraine called again, voice hollow this time, stripped bare of the hysterics and pity she used to lace around her daughter's mistakes. "She's gone," she said. For a split second, my heart stopped. "Not dead," Lorraine added quickly, almost bitterly. "Ran. Packed up what little she had left and left town." I leaned back against the counter in my kitchen, letting the silence fill the space between us. "Where?" I asked, though part of me didn't really care. "Florida," she said. "Some cheap rental near Daytona. She thinks she can start over there." I nodded slowly, letting the weight of it settle. Savannah, who once acted like she owned every room she walked into, who laughed like life owed her happiness without effort, reduced to living paycheck to paycheck in a city that chews up dreams and spits out bones. Fitting. Lorraine didn't apologize for Savannah. Didn't ask me to forgive her. There were no more illusions left between us. She just sighed, a long, shuddering sound. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what she did to you. You didn't deserve it." I didn't say anything. Some apologies come too late to matter. When I hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, the morning light slanting through the window, golden and sharp. It was over. Truly over. Not just legally. Not just physically. But spiritually. Savannah was gone, not just from the house, not just from the town, but from my life. There would be no more late-night calls. No more desperate texts. No more manipulations or threats. I had survived her. I had outlasted the wreckage she tried to bury me under. And for the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling like I was drowning in someone else's expectations. I spent that weekend reclaiming the last pieces of my life. I replaced the furniture Savannah had insisted on buying. Sold the wedding china she'd picked out but never used. Tore down the awful floral wallpaper she loved so much and painted the walls a cool, clean gray. By Sunday night, it didn't feel like our house anymore. It felt like mine. Empty in the right way. Quiet in the right way. I sat on the back porch with a cold beer, the dogs sleeping at my feet, and stared out at the yard. There was no grand revelation. No swelling music. No Hollywood redemption arc. Just peace. Hard-earned, quiet peace. Savannah would start over somewhere, probably with some new fool she could sink her claws into. Maybe she'd learn. Maybe she'd destroy him too. It didn't matter. Not to me. She was just a closed chapter now. A cautionary tale tucked between the pages of a life that was still mine to write. As the stars came out clean and sharp against the black velvet of the sky, I lifted my bottle in a silent toast. To the death of lies. To the end of betrayal. To the freedom that only comes when you've been burned all the way down to ash and survived. And when the night finally swallowed the last traces of light, I went inside, locked the door behind me, and left the past exactly where it belonged. Buried. Time didn't heal anything. That was the first lie I stopped telling myself. Time didn't patch up betrayal. Time didn't stitch broken trust back together. It didn't erase the image of Savannah laughing in another man's arms right under my own roof. What time did do, if you survived long enough, was carve you into something harder. Sharper. Cleaner. It stripped you down to the bone and dared you to keep walking. Months passed. Seasons shifted. The house changed. The town stayed the same, but it looked different now, smaller somehow, like it had been repainted while I wasn't looking. People stopped whispering after a while. Stopped treating me like the broken man with the embarrassing story. New scandals came to town, fresher meat for them to chew on. And me? I built something better. I poured my spare time into fixing up the house, real work, honest work. Stripped the floors back to the original wood. Knocked down the fake walls Savannah insisted on putting up to open the space. Rewired the whole damn living room myself. Brick by brick, nail by nail, I reclaimed everything she tried to taint. Not for revenge. Not to prove a point. Just because it was mine. I started seeing friends again, the real ones, the ones who didn't believe Savannah's theater act. Laughed for real. Ate dinners that tasted like something again. Woke up without that heavy, nauseous pit in my stomach. It wasn't some movie moment miracle. It was slow. Messy. Real. And somewhere in all that mess, I found the thing I thought Savannah had stolen from me forever. Self-respect. Not the fake kind people slap on Instagram quotes. The real kind, the one that comes from looking in the mirror and not flinching. I didn't date. Didn't chase anything. Love, romance, even casual company, it all felt like something for another man in another life. I was good with the quiet. Good with the space Savannah left behind. Better to be alone than chained to someone who would set fire to you for a little excitement. One night, sitting out on the back porch with the dogs sprawled across the steps, I thought about her, not with rage, not with sadness. Just a memory, like a song you used to like but can't remember the lyrics to anymore. She humiliated me, flaunted her affair, and even brought her lover into our home. I stayed silent until I reached for my Magnum, and suddenly he wasn't so confident anymore. That night replayed in my head sometimes. Not the violence of it. The control of it. I didn't let them turn me into a villain. I didn't let them drag me down into the mud they lived in. I stood my ground, kept my hands clean, watched them destroy themselves with the very lies they thought would bury me. If anyone ever asked me what I learned from it all, from loving someone like Savannah, from surviving betrayal so deep it rewired your very soul, I'd tell them this. Never confuse loyalty with stupidity. Never confuse forgiveness with weakness. And never ever let someone who sees you as disposable decide your worth. You set your own price. You write your own ending. And sometimes the greatest victory is just standing tall while everything false crumbles around you. That's the real freedom. Not love, not revenge. Freedom. Real. Hard-earned. Unbreakable. Mine.